Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the How to Carnivore podcast. Today, we're very lucky to be joined by Dr. Sean O'Meara, who is based in the States. He's a medical doctor who is completely focused on reversing chronic disease and also has an angle towards human optimization. And I know that Dr. Sean has been working with some very high-ranking political figures as well as executives and that sort of thing for many years. So I'm really looking forward to, quite selfishly, I'm looking forward to hearing about Dr. Sean's success and the protocols that he puts in place so that we can all apply that to our lives. So, Dr. Sean, welcome.
Well, thank you, Simon. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you and your followers.
My pleasure. Dr. Sean, could we kick things off somewhat at the start? I'm curious about how you identified this huge chronic disease issue. I know it's pretty obvious, but some people seem to be still blissfully unaware, and why you decided to devote yourself to reversing it.
Sure. So by way of background, I'm a emergency medicine physician by training and spent, decades working in level one trauma centers around the United States. I trained in the Army, very experienced with trauma and uh, very conventional in terms of my physician training and residency training as well. But it was just through my own experience as a typical American, eating a standard American diet, gaining weight and gaining disease. In a chronic disease, I was beset with numerous medical conditions, severe heartburn, Barrett's esophagus, where I had precancerous lesions in my esophagus and I had to be scoped every 3 months to biopsy my metaplastic tissue, looking for when it converted to cancer so they could start chemotherapy and radiation. Very stressful to have that biopsy procedure done every 3 months. I had erectile dysfunction and a large prostate that would wake me up 5 times a night to pee.
Hmm.
Just a really weak urine stream. I had eczema all over my body, restless leg syndrome. So I kicked my legs constantly, especially at nighttime. Sleep apnea. So I snored at night, gasped for air at night. I had atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, clogged arteries. I was a mess,
Mm.
but it was kind of business as usual. It's the way it is. You're 48 years of age. You accumulate these disease processes. You may not like it, but everybody else is. So you kind of just float along in the mass of a chronic disease that's out there. But I think it was my weight that just kind of was really bothering me. I was a heavyset guy, and I was a military physician, and I remember a patient came into the hospital and they were very fit, and I just kind of remarked, "Oh, I wish I was as fit as you," uh, out loud to this, person. And they said, "Well, you can be. You got to go on the paleo diet." Back then it was, 2009. And so I said, "What is that?" And know anything about it. And so he told me a little bit about it and told me to Google it and said to eat fermented foods
Wow.
and to sprint and do some fasting. And so I said, okay, well, I'll give it a try. And it was really just to lose weight that I did those things, Simon. And but my experience over that next 12 months, about a year, was, kind of expecting maybe I'd lose weight, and I did. But what I wasn't expecting to happen was all my conditions went away, and I realized I was peeing full stream like I used to when I was a teenager. And you don't know how much you really need that and enjoy and benefit from strong ability to urinate till it's taken from you, and you're dribbling, you're wetting your underwear. I'd have to take a huge wad of toilet paper and put it in my underwear when I'd walk away after peeing because it would just dribble out for quite a while afterwards. And it's just really impacting my lifestyle, keep me from sleeping soundly at nighttime. And after about a year, I realized all of it had gone away, and I was peeing forcefully. I was no longer having to take any medications for erectile functioning. My eczema had cleared up. My heartburn had completely gone away, and I had two consecutive biopsies that showed complete normalization of my epithelial cells of my esophagus, and I was pronounced cured from my Barrett's esophagus, to the great shock
Hmm.
of the gastroenterologist that was treating me. So I essentially reversed all of my medical conditions without any medicines, just through lifestyle adjustments. And most people would be very happy with that, but it had a very unusual effect on me. It just pissed the hell out of me, because I had spent 4 years of training in medical school, 4 years in residency, and all that 8 years of work did nothing to help me. And I realized the weight of reality was it wouldn't help anybody else either. And what would the average man do, or woman, be able to reverse disease if I, as a physician, was so misled?
Mm.
Everybody else put in their trust in the conventional healthcare system. So I decided to become a researcher. I teamed up with another researcher at Dr. Zhang, Dr. CJ Zhang, MD, PhD, brilliant researcher. And we studied the reversal of chronic disease, but we did something interesting where we didn't look to science, because all the scientific studies, none of them really showed how to reverse chronic disease. And we decided that we would look to nature instead, because all the species out in the wild lacked chronic disease. There was just one species that roamed this planet that was afflicted with chronic disease. So
Mm.
we decided to think outside the box. Let's look at the animals. Let's look what do they do for the purposes of assessing whether what happens out in wild could be adopted by Homo sapiens to reverse chronic disease. And the answer is, ladies and gentlemen, it can, and it does. So really living like the animals in the wild, cutting out processed foods, being more adoptive of natural circadian rhythms when it comes to light, being less artificial when it comes to living, and cutting out processed foods and eating a species appropriate diet, which we can get into. All of that really, we found, had the dramatic effect on eliminating chronic disease. And we targeted, to help us understand this, these fat depots inside the body, fat around the heart, called epicardial adipose tissue, or just heart fat for short. Fat deep in your abdomen, called visceral fat. And then fat that lines and infiltrates, invades, and replaces your healthy muscle, called myosteatosis, or what is referred to in the beef industry as marbleization, marbleized steak. And those three biomarkers turned out to be the most effective targets for eliminating chronic disease. And when we targeted it using an MRI, we saw chronic disease flee the bodies of 6,000 Americans that we studied for the National Science Foundation. And so I left my job as an emergency medicine physician. I set up a new specialty in medicine that I call health optimization, which is really the optimization of health rather than the treatment of disease. And I'm here to tell your audience it's real. You can optimize your health. And unless your health is optimally improving every single year while you're getting older, you're living incorrectly. And the big lie out there, Simon, I like to tell people, is that you should be getting worse when you get older. It's just part of life. And the reality is absolute bullcrap. You should be getting better, because you get smarter,
Mm.
you learn more, and you adopt more. So an example of that would be like an athlete. Athletes typically get better as they play sports because they improve, they get greater skill sets. But the reality is they don't know how to live correctly. So they start falling apart, eating the wrong foods, doing the wrong things, not doing the right things. And so their careers end far too prematurely. But I will go on record 2025 as the first position to say the future number one highest paid athletes will be men and women in their 60s and 70 years of age who will have adopted the correct strategies for optimizing their health, preserve their health, and acquired, Simon, decades of experience playing the sport, whatever they're in. And
Mm.
so you'll see the highest paid professionals will be men in their 60s and 70s, and probably down the road, maybe even in their 80s and 90s. But I'll be bold enough to say right now, Sean O'Meara,
Yeah.
2025 is calling it. Men and women in their 60s and 70s, well, 50s to 60s will be the highest paid athletes.
That's a very bold call. And it's interesting and it pushes you outside of your comfort zone, even thinking about how that might be possible. I mean, we're definitely starting to see people like Tom Brady, who was, you could argue, at the height of his powers in his late 30s or maybe early 40s. Even here in Australia, Dr. Sean, we play, well, Australian rules football is like AFL is one of the big sports. Very dynamic, very physical, hard running, and highly skilled. And we saw in the final series there was one player who was 35 years old and basically just took control of a game and used that experience and that intensity and all that
Oh, you're
skill.
starting to break up. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Dr. Sean. You've sort of frozen as well. I'm not sure if it's you or I. Okay, we're back online. Yeah, I was saying that there is one particular player who's 35 and completely dominated a game, and you could just see that they were older than everyone else, but more skilled, more experienced, more intense. So, I can see what you're saying, and certainly for games or sports like golf or tennis or sports that require a lot of skill and strategy, I can see how, being an older athlete, if you're maintaining your physicality and it's not degrading while you're improving your skill and your cognitive ability, I can see how we'll start to see a trend of older athletes dominating. And just also on that point, if you've ever played sport as an older athlete and you've come up against somebody 10 or 15 or 20 years younger than you have this sort of mental edge over them. And, you have old man strength where you're just a bit stronger and more mature. And so, you've got me. I can see where you're going with that. There is an advantage to being older in many ways.
Yeah. And another, segue into about my health optimization, especially I do now, is I'm working with a lot of senior politicians, which is really fascinating. I've
It's interesting.
worked in the past when I was on active duty. I recently retired as a colonel from the U.S. Army, but when I was still on active duty, I was selected to provide medical care as a physician to the sitting Vice President of the United States and former presidents of the United States and current secretaries of state. So very interesting, high level people. But it was always from the perspective of being ready if they had a heart attack or they got shot or they got hurt in a car wreck, a motorcade. But today, I'm back taking care of senior politicians. So, senior members of the U.S. Congress, U.S. senators, governors, members of the president's cabinet, ambassadors. So, these are very high level, senior politicians. But now my approach isn't to take care of them when they're having a heart attack. My approach now is to improve and optimize their health. One, so they definitely don't have a heart attack, prevent that from happening. But interestingly, when you optimize somebody's health, what we found out was happening for the National Science Foundation, Simon, is you optimize their appearance
Mm.
and their performance. So not only do athletes perform better, but athletes look better. So, kind of an example in sports that I'll segue into the political belief is Rolando. If you look at Cristiano Rolando, he plays right at the top of the game, but he also is a very handsome guy. He looks good. He does commercials. He looks really fit, and so it's an example how when you optimize your health, your appearance also improves and your performance improves. Well, that becomes really valuable as a potential service to senior politicians
Mm.
and leadership, heads of companies. So for years, I've been working with CEOs of major corporations. And in the past about 6 months, now I'm in with senators and governors and members of President Trump's cabinet. And what's really interesting to me is that I'm endeavoring, helping them to understand that when we improve their health, they become better leaders. They
Mm.
can serve the American people better. They can serve their constituency. And the short of all this is when you're really healthy, Simon, you become a better influencer. And this is important because I used to say, I had this nice saying that people don't just survive or even thrive. The true human call is to dominate. But I really changed my mind about that in the past 6 months. The highest level call of a human being when they've ascended to a level of optimal existence is that they want to influence other people because they want them to enjoy what they're enjoying. So when you get really healthy and you're living really well, you want to share that with as many other people as possible. And that is, Maslow's role of hierarchical needs. I would say that this is this is way beyond just fully actualized. That person is now primed to want to share it with other people, and you can't resist it. You
Mm.
want to do that. So
Mm.
what I repeatedly see in my clients once I get them healthy is that they want to share that with other people, and along the way they become better influencers. They can lead their companies better. They can lead their constituency better, represent them better, serve whatever capacity they're in. And I'm really excited about it. So it's kind of a subset of health optimization is influence medicine, the ability to help people become better influencers. And it's never before because it's never been seen before.
Mm.
Nobody in the practice of conventional medicine has seen anybody really improve over a period of time. But that's in effect what happens. So kind of a interesting side note that we see is in social media, my clients are constantly putting up their most recent photographs instead of their old photographs.
Mm.
And that is really pathognomonic of a human being that is health optimizing, that their appearance of their face, their body is improving with every year. And
Mm.
it's very achievable. And if you're listening and you routinely follow Simon, I hope you take it to heart, you explore it, and you learn about this deadly inflammatory fat that explains, belies why you have chronic disease, why your appearance degrades, why your performance falls apart over a period of time, and how you can and eradicate those deadly inflammatory fats inside your body to preserve your health, optimize your health, improve your appearance, and improve your performance. So
Mm.
these deadly areas of fat, I think, are purposely kept out of medical school by the pharmaceutical industry
Right.
that has an inappropriate, in my opinion, amount of influence in the medical schools, curriculums around the world. And so your physician, if you're listening today, won't know about visceral fat, won't know about this deadly fat around people's hearts, and they won't know about this fatty infiltration that's going on inside of your muscles. They're singularly the very best explanation for why you're going to need a cane, then a walker, a wheelchair, and then ultimately you're going to be in a bed until you die because your muscles will have fallen apart, depriving you of those basic capabilities over a slow period of time. And you're completely unaware that it's happening because it's not understood by the medical profession. But if you're listening today, if you've ever had an MRI or CT, you can look for this fat around your heart, fat in your abdomen, and fat within your muscles, and begin to see that you're falling apart. And then change your life and your report card on how good you're doing with your life will be reflected in the elimination of that fat, not improving your cholesterol panels, not lowering your cholesterol. Who in the world lowers their cholesterol and then has a testimony how it helped them out? When I lowered my cholesterol, I felt so much better. I got all better. My whole life improved. 8 billion people, and everybody's being told to lower the cholesterol.
Yeah.
Nobody's out talking about this deadly inflammatory fat, but I haven't met a single human being that's eliminated that fat and doesn't feel that their whole lives have completely changed.
Mm. Dr. Sean, I love your philosophy of getting back to nature and acting more like an animal. Human beings, we are animals. We're just the apex predator or species of animal. You know, this is a really foreign concept for a lot of people. A lot of people are looking for the next supplement. They're looking for GLP-1s. They're looking for, even exercising under artificial light. They're trying to avoid the sun. I mean, what do you say to these people who just are so fearing of a natural life and they're going completely the opposite direction?
Yeah. Well, there's along the way, I almost feel like there's been a lazy gene that mutated within humanity and has been incorporated within so many people's gene pools that would have us taking pills and supplements and looking for the fastest, easiest solution to things. But I like to give the example that humanity has always had to carry water, and so you might have to carry water up a hill, and you could create this little cart that's either gas powered, diesel powered, electrical powered to carry your water up a hill, and you may end up getting the water up the hill. But if you use that cart, you're going to deprive yourself of how you're going to improve if you carry the water yourself. And that's what they don't tell you that you're being deprived of when you take these pills and supplements and shortcuts. That the reality is make your body do the work. Even when it comes to exogenous supplements, which, admittedly, I take, I look for as much as possible for ways to live my own lifestyle to produce endogenously, make my body do the work rather than relying on supplementation. But there are a few supplements that I have to, by necessity, take because they're not endogenously producible inside the body. Like one thing I like to take is lithium orotate, the mineral lithium, not the drug, because it's a mineral. We don't make it in our bodies, so I take it as a supplement. but many other people are taking steroids or hormones. And your body makes these things, and you'd be far better off making your body create those things. And the same thing with exosomes and stem cells. There are all of these new services that are out there where exogenous stem cells are being introduced into the body. Sometimes they're even harvested and processed from the body and then reintroduced. But you have to worry about error and complications from those, because if your body makes them and delivers them within the body without any processing, they go precisely, Simon, where they're supposed to go. But if they end up going somewhere else, nobody knows where the long-term targeting of these stem cells could be. It could end up in proliferative disorders leading to tumorigenesis, where we create tumors, growths, even potentially cancer. So stick with nature. Make your body produce far more beneficial and perfect stem cells. So, for instance, with fast, something I'm doing right now, I have been fasting right now continuously for about 76 hours. And, at about the 72-hour mark, stem cells really take off from their production in the epithelial cells within the gastrointestinal tract. So my body's making some awesome, badass stem cells completely free, no risk of tumorigenesis with those stem cells. I don't have to worry about complications. So I endorse people that are resistant or are embracing a lifestyle of artificiality to wake up. You want to live like the animals in terms of your health. Animals, by large, look really good until the very end. Then they kind of fall apart. Their health span is preserved for the majority of their lives. Our species starts falling apart in our 20s. We start accumulating disease. And so for much of our existence, we look like hell. We don't look good. We're falling apart and we're not performing as well. And so I think we could benefit a lot from taking a look at nature. And that's what we did. And I endorse it. I'm not telling you have to run around and eat raw meat and kill other people with your bare hands and stuff like that. You can still live in a civilized manner, but live much more naturally. So, another example I try to do is that, I just try to have a lot more natural daylight. I'm outdoors more. I'm a consultant. I have an outdoor office in my backyard.
That's cool.
Where I work. And I also have gym equipment out there that I exercise in between my consultations and when I'm doing work. So I work outside. So I exercise outside. I do my professional work outside. And it comes to nighttime, I don't use artificial lights. I use candle lights and natural pink Himalayan salt lamps and candles. And so my house looks like an enormous campfire at nighttime. There's flickers everywhere. And it eases me into a sleep, beautiful circadian dominance, cutting out the artificial light and getting a lot more natural sunshine and getting a lot more natural air. These are all things within the reach of the average person. And then eating more naturally, Simon. I'm just getting people to stop eating processed foods, fake foods. Animals in the wild don't eat these processed foods. They a species specific diet. There are times where they may not have access to what they're typically, going to eat, and they may have to kind of venture off and try some other things, and that could happen to us. But we have found for the National Science Foundation, in case, and it usually comes up, what is a species appropriate diet for humans? What was the diet that we found most aligned with eliminating this dangerous fat around your heart, dangerous fat in your abdomen, and fat within your muscle, that also more quickly eradicated chronic disease. And it is, you know, a meat-centric diet, eating predominantly carnivore, and then adding in some fermented vegetable. Now, keep in mind, if you're listening and you're vegan or vegetarian, that I work with
Unlikely.
clients who are vegans and I still get them to lose this fat, even though they're not eating a meat centric diet. You can eliminate it, just takes longer, and you got to be more purposeful and intentional about it. You got to cut out processed foods because your vegan doesn't give you a right or license or allowance to eat, a carrot cake muffin and think that that's going to be healthy for you. So I get my vegan clients eating, plants and vegetables with fermented foods, and they slowly will eliminate this visceral fat and improve their level of chronic disease. But to answer the question, what do we see eliminates chronic disease the best? It's eating a carnivore diet with microbes, fermented foods. So fermented vegetables, fermented fruit, fermented dairy as a garnish, chewed together, co-masticated together, and we saw the greatest reduction of disease in a human body following these targets that were tracked flawlessly by MRI.
Fascinating. A lot of the people listening, Dr. Sean, are going to be carnivores, and I'm guessing most of them don't incorporate the fermented veg or possibly fermented dairy as well. What is it about the fermentation process that's so
Yeah,
beneficial?
yeah, great question. So, why is carnivore? When carnivores come to me, I see them filled still with a lot of visceral fat. So why isn't it perfect by itself? Well, 20,000 years ago, Simon, it was. You didn't need to eat those fermented foods.
Right.
So why do you have to eat them today? Because it's how we get the meat. 20,000 years ago, you and I would be badasses out hunting, and we would shoot, stone, spear, whatever was the healthiest animal we could get to, and we would field dress it. And guess what would be all over our hands? The
Mm.
microbes from that living animal. We would skin it, stored it within the fur and the hide of that animal, were the microbiome associated with that animal that made it awesome and attractive for Simon and Sean to hunt. And those microbes would be transferred to the meat, and we would consume them. We would share it, and we would drink the water 20,000 years ago. When we ate this meat, that was filled with all sorts of living microorganisms. So, eating that way. So, this is how you do it. Thousands of years ago, when we adopted an agricultural based society and we started planting things, we learned about the benefits of fermenting things that we planted. And it added this microbial richness that allowed us to preserve and introduce the necessity of these microbes that contribute to our microbiome and allow us to digest better and live better. These are living organisms that reside within our gastrointestinal tract, they reside on our skin, they're in our hair, and they're part of our signature. And they're basically the ultimate report card and how badass you are in terms of your lifestyle. We can decipher looking at those organisms and see whether you're a real badass or you just suck at living, based on the species of microbes you collect. So you carnivores listening today are being half-ass when it comes to your health optimization. You got to get this. If you don't want to eat the fermented vegetables or fermented fruit or fermented dairy, then go do what I'm telling you. Grab the microbes from that animal in the wild, not in some CAFO, combined animal feeding operation that Hormel is operating, or some big ranch that's grain feeding their cattle. You got to go out and hunt elk, deer, bison. You got to get those organisms in the wild and get the microbes from them and get them on your meat and go drink natural water. Get
Mm.
natural spring water out of the to you. Until you're doing this, you are half-ass in how you're living, and you're missing out on the ultimate necessity that a human being faces, and that is to think of themselves as not just an organism of one, but you're really a host with trillions of other organisms that reside in your gut and reside on your skin externally, and they define your level of health. They're actively contributing to your health. They create metabolites that are either good and awesome and are going to make you more biologically optimized, or they're going to do the opposite to you. Create metabolites and molecules that are inflammatory. They're going to degrade your appearance, degrade your performance, and degrade the quality of your life. So you got to choose this day how you're going to live and make informed decisions about whether you're going to add to your microbiome positive, contributory, beneficial microbes, or allow diseased ones through ignorance to inhabit and cultivate colonize inside of your gut and on your skin, and contribute to your decline over the years. But for me, in my house, we are intentional about contributing every single day, getting the best microbes we can possibly get into our gut every time we eat. We are eating meat with these beneficial microbes intentionally together, like a garnish. Like I used to eat hamburgers with ketchup and hot dogs with mustard. Now I eat with a little bit of these fermented microbes chewed together so that meat begins the digestive process in the mouth with these beneficial microbes even before I swallow that food.
Is it important to eat multiple different ferments with your meat? Because I've experimented with this, and I've primarily just out of laziness, I'll normally have one thing of one ferment, and I'm using that as a instead of a sauce, I'm using that as a condiment.
Yeah. So, yes, you have to have a variety.
Right.
So, one key insight, Simon, when it comes to the microbiome is to appreciate that it really is an incredible focus of diversity of life within your gut. And it's better thought of as like a safari or an Amazonian jungle or rainforest, where the health of the environment and the health of every single species organism that lives in that safari or lives in that jungle is predicated on the health of the environment, which turns on the degree of diversity. And so when you're only eating one ferment with your meat, you're basically like doing Noah's Ark with nothing but a bunch of zebra on board the ark. But God told Noah to go get two of every species on the planet, two of everything, put it in that ark. That added the diversity. And so we see that today in jungles and rainforests and African safaris. But the reality is for most, at least Americans, and I would say this probably is the case for dwellers in Australia as well, that their microbiome resembles an abandoned dirt lot
Mm.
inside of New York City where weeds are growing because you have such a lack of diversity. And that despondent condition has come about through antibiotics, chemicals, chlorine in your drinking water that you're drinking every day, food preservatives that kill bacteria and keep it from growing in processed foods added to keep it fresh, that you're throwing down your pie hole thinking that it's tasty and it's destroying your microbiome, ripping up killing the beautiful diversity that you were brought into this world with, and whatever beneficial ones that you might be exposed to get destroyed with exposure to those processed foods, organophosphates, glyphosates, chemicals, pesticides. There's so much insult that has befallen humanity today through modernity that destroys this beautiful microbiome. So you mentioned GLP-1 medicine. GLP-1, this amazing peptide was gleaned from research where they simply took stool from skinny people and put it into the rectums of fat people and cured their obesity. And they studied, this was 25 years ago. Did you ever hear about it? No. Let's keep that one secret, boys and girls, because we'll keep that in the back room and we can figure out how to make some moolah from that. And so now you see the emergence of GLP-1 meds into the market instead of realization that how you live defines your microbiome. And I hope in the future we will see the emergence of fecal microbiota transplants that could take place to allow people that have obesity to better reverse their obesity through transplant of a microbiome from a super healthy human being into a less healthy human being in a very beneficial way. So very excited about the future. FMTs represent, in my opinion, a more exciting frontier to impact the lives of humans today, far more than space travel or the ocean, because it can immediately bring this change about. If anybody knows Elon Musk, send him my way. I'll get him working on the most important company he could ever do, or Jeff Bezos, which would be health optimization by leveraging the microbiome and developing a commercially viable healthcare system where providers, doctors, and nurses, and elements within healthcare are compensated for optimizing the health of humans instead of benefiting from their progressive disease. The compensation right now is all predicated on progressive disease. It's the exact opposite, worst system you could possibly create to benefit the consumer. And everybody's like a bunch of dummies. Keep buying it. And while they're falling apart. And look at who's benefiting is the healthcare system, big insurance, and big pharma. All the players, and even big processed food organizations that are, contributing to this. So it's an enormous mess, absolute enormous mess. But we're starting to see, Secretary Kennedy, an emergence of politicians who are going to challenge the status quo and try to get at least the United States healthy and expose the malevolent influence of economic influencers that have assigned their monetary interests ahead of the health of the average American, average consumer. It really goes well beyond America. We are exporting our evil all over the globe. And as a consequence, we see obesity and chronic disease exploding in third world countries that historically had very low levels of chronic disease. Asia, South Korea, Japan, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia. Now with dramatically rapidly rising levels of obesity and associated chronic disease because of our exporting of a couple things. One, our economies. We're bringing our businesses over there. But sadly, Simon, we're bringing our microbiome over there. Americans are traveling, Westerners, en masse through air transit and bringing our pathogenic, obesity generating microbes with us. And we are infecting those other countries, spreading this around. And nobody's talking about it. A
So
lot
you
of
think
money to be made.
so the actual microbiome is being transferred from one person to another. Is that what you're suggesting? And that
Yes.
microbiome is
Yeah.
hardwired for obesity.
Yeah, you can't be around other people without having basically I call uh, micro FMTs, fecal microbiota transplants, just on a smaller level. Touching people, having contact with other people, or touching and having contact with articles that other people have had, shopping carts, handrails on escalators, buttons in elevators. They're all riddled with microbes that come, like it or not, right out of the bottom of other human beings. There are fecal microbes on people's hands, and it's just part of our existence that you're going to have these, and you spread it around. And so you want to hang with as many healthy people as possible. That's why athletes go up and high five and high ten each other when there's when they do something awesome, because nature says recruit their microbiome, they're a high performer, get their microbes. Or somebody does something awesome, you rub their hair, because microbes are stored in the hair. Hair is designed, Simon, when we go into the water, the ocean, or a lake or a river, our microbes wash off our skin, but they adhere perfectly to our hair and then repropagate all over our body. And the level of the microbes on your skin define and dictate how well you're going to heal if you get a laceration or you get an infection or some kind of assault. So we strip it away with soaps and cleansers and disinfectants, and we're our own worst enemy because we're too clean. But animals heal beautifully out in the wild from trauma because they have this preserved and optimizing microbiome inside their gut and on their skin. And so the microbiome is singularly the most important objective I work on with clients who come to me, working with me one on one to become the best biological version of themselves. That's what we get started on. The microbiome is the strategies. Their targets are fat inside their abdomen, fat around their heart, and fat in their muscle. And we don't stop until they're optimizing their health.
Wow. So you think that the microbiome transplant could be the next frontier of helping people quickly reverse this visceral fat and get their health and their life back on track?
I do indeed. I mean, we're seeing um, incurable diseases being reversed, like Crohn's. Crohn's is a lifelong autoimmune disorder, which means you are going to take medicine for the rest of your life. But if in study where somebody has an FMT, which can only be done in the United States for C. difficile, and I'm going to imagine that Australia is likely subjugated to the influence of big pharma down there, whoever they might be, and your governing health, the equivalency of the FDA, I don't know what it is in Australia, likely restricts physicians from doing FMTs, but we can do it in the United States for only C. difficile. But people that have C. difficile infection and have underlying Crohn's, we see on a fairly often basis, their Crohn's reverses and other chronic disease reverses through the transfer of feces from a healthy person into a diseased person. And so with these, and cancers reversing, I've even heard of ALS, which is 100% fatal. Three cases, case reports were waiting for them to be written up, where three people with ALS went into remission, recovered, um, a healthy state through FMTs. So I think FMTs are indeed exciting, representing in a very interesting and incredibly important area of science that we need to investigate.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating because it's not something that I have looked into too much. So just one more question on that. Uh is it also that it assists with behavioral change, which then leads to the reverse of these conditions, or it's actually the microbes which are acting in a way to reverse disease inside the
I
gut?
think it's a combination of both. So the behavioral change is not so much the human change in themselves, is that as their microbiome changes, your microbiome communicates with you. They influence the host, for one, to feed them. The microbes that dominate within the gastrointestinal tract aren't privy and able to leave their host and go into another host as well. I'm kind of done with Simon here. He's not feeding me my fudge and my ice cream and my cookies and whatever. They're not going to get up and walk away from you. They're going to make you feel like you're freaking going to die unless you eat this damn cookie.
Yeah.
And they powerfully influence you. You think it's you, and it's nothing more than the species of microbes down inside of you. And
Mhm.
if you don't believe me, stop 3 days, all your carbohydrates, watch all your cravings go away. But eventually they come back. Why? Because you went down the escalator and you touched the handrail of somebody else who's eating cookies. So this is why I have all my clients always eating fermented foods for the rest of their lives, because the microbes in fermented foods are the arch enemies of the microbes that are telling your butt to eat cookies, pizza, drink beer, and eat donuts. These organisms are opportunistic, and they're not always friendly with each other. They compete for resources and real estate within their host. So you want to drive and dominate a lifestyle where you are attracting the most beneficial, helpful microbes in your gastrointestinal tract as you can get. So that's why I never eat meat without fermented vegetables and fermented fruit and fermented dairy chewed together to improve the composition of what is going into my gastrointestinal tract. So even beginning in my mouth, I chew meat with a variety of ferments. So I don't have just one like you mentioned. I have something more on the order of like this. So a plate with a bunch of
Wow.
ferments. Now I don't say you don't have to make these pretty little piles. The truth is that took Sean O'Meara a half hour to make that thing. That
Mm.
thing that's like a work of art. But what I really do now is I have a crate of jars, about 15 fermented jars, and we bring it out in the O'Meara household dinner table or lunch, and those jars are there. And then we have tongs, and then we just grab scoops of ferments from all the jars, dump them on our plate. They don't have to look pretty. We mix it up, and we'll even add in some cheese and kefir, dump sour cream in there, add some nice fermented dairy, and my God, Simon, you talk about a delicious meal.
Mm.
Every meal I eat, and I've been eating this way for hmm, about about 8 years now, always is like the best meal I've ever had. It's unbelievable.
Mm.
I can't think of one meal where I didn't feel like it was the greatest meal I've ever had. When I was that 48-year-old guy with erectile dysfunction and a prostate probably the size of an apricot, the urine would dribble out of me. I would have all kinds of food in my house, eat all different kinds of meals, and I'd always say there's nothing to eat in this house, and I'd always forget what I had the night before for dinner. Now it's such a memorable event. I never forget my last meal. I always remember it, and I'm always ecstatic to look forward to my
Mm.
next meal like this with a huge variety of these microbes. Not only taste good, the fermented foods, but they put me in the greatest mood. It's like an adventure when I consume this. Now, if you're listening today and you hate the taste of microbes, the fermented foods, let me let you in on a little secret. You don't hate it. The microbes, the pathogenic, obesogenic, carbohydrate, food processing, processed food craving microbes inside of you hate fermented foods. You're just listening to them because they know if you eat them, their gig is up.
Mm.
They're going to die because these fermented foods go down and kill them. So you need to get control. Say, time out. I'm the boss. And you take a little teeny tiny bit of, say, this juice right here. See that little bit of a brine from the ferments? Dip your finger in there. And a little tiny drop is hanging off that tip of that finger. You can barely see it. And you take it into a glass of non-chlorinated water and just dip it in. This is black coffee. Dip it in the non-chlorinated water. You won't see it, you won't smell it, and you won't taste it. And you drink it. You've just put millions of beneficial microbes into your gut. They're going to go down in a special operation like assassins, and they're going to start selectively killing off the bad microbes that have been living inside of you.
Wow.
And it'd be setting you with cravings for donuts, ice cream, and fudge that you've been previously all your years seamlessly helpless to ever say no to. And once you eat in this particular way, you will become like this super disciplined human being with no cravings except for healthy meat and healthy fermented foods, vegetables, fermented fruit, fermented dairy.
Amazing. Dr. Sean, I'm worried that we're going to run out of time. Maybe we could get a bit of your philosophy or the sort of protocols that you put people on. Let's say you've got somebody who's come to you who has, let's say that they're a middle-aged man, so they're 50 plus, and they've got visceral fat, and they don't really like eating healthy food, and they just can't get motivated to move their body, and they're working a corporate job. How do we get this person, how do we rewild them and get their abdomen looking like that?
Yeah. So what I do right away to get their attention, because you can tell them all these things, like I've already said a lot. And you know what your audience is doing like this? They're just listening to it. But it's the audience, the human being that knows they have a problem, sees they have the problem, that are going to do something about it. So the first thing I recommend is get an MRI scan. And the MRI ends the lie. You're not as healthy as you think. My biggest observation when people come to me is they think they're so healthy.
Mm.
And a lot of people talk to me and they want to brag about how healthy they are. In the back of my mind, they're filled with disease. They just know it. So you get a scan like this, right lung, left lung. In the middle of your lung is your heart. And this is a friend of mine who's 38 years old with this huge chunk of fat around his heart that caused him to go into AFib at the age of 38. Now, we don't see typical 30-year-olds going in AFib, but we're seeing it all the time now because of this problem. The dad bod. This was his abdomen, this big belly sticking out. And he had a dad bod, um, 6 years ago. It was smaller when I first became friends with him, and he didn't listen to me. And so he just kept getting worse. I didn't scan him back then, but now I've scanned him, and when he had this bigger abdomen, and we could see that this fat around his heart is causes atrial fibrillation. So my recommendation is get a scan of your heart and get a scan of your abdomen so you can see this um, fat within your abdomen, how much you have. And this is a scan of a client who is a governor in the United States, first governor to come forward and get scanned. Super happy that he did that. And he had this huge chunk of fat around his heart. And, if it's in, senators and congressmen, in around members of President Trump's cabinet, their secretaries, it's going to be in you. And you want to get a scan. So get an MRI wherever you are. You get this in Australia, get these in the United States, and get a scan, see that you have a problem. My medical practice we're the first health optimizing practice nationwide. We're in all 50 states, but we also provide services internationally. So we can help people get an MRI scan where they're, read that MRI scan for them, and then put them in a program to get rid of visceral fat. I'm the founder of my medical practice, and I didn't want to make a bunch of money reading MRIs. That's not what I'm around for. I'm here to optimize humanity in chronic disease. So we sell a program to get rid of this dangerous heart fat, dangerous fat inside your abdomen, and we give you coaching exactly how to do it for 2 months. We're with you and give you all sorts of programs, groups that you can be a part of. So for the rest of your life, you can stay in an optimizing existence, and we give you all the strategies. It's too much to get into here, but it's 50 things that we get people to work on when they come to our medical practice to get rid of that visceral fat and start optimizing their health. So many things. But I would recommend, Simon, at the start, getting a scan to see and understand that you have a problem. And then you can track it 3 months later, 6 months later, repeat it, and see how much you've eliminated for doing those strategies. And that will reinforce it. Unless you see the elimination, you're not going to have that reinforcement that's really necessary.
Awesome. Yeah. So the first point or the first step is to find out what's really going on inside you. So even if you are skinny and even if you are an endurance athlete, which a lot of these people are, the reality is, as you said, the MRI don't lie. What is happening underneath the hood inside of you could be very dangerous. It could be fat around your heart. Um, and then just to add to that, the other benefit that Dr. Sean talks about of doing his program is that you will look amazing. You will look healthy. You will become tanned. You will lose some of the fat and inflammation around your face, and things will just start to click. And then you can become this person of influence who people trust and who people really believe in. So, yeah, there's obviously a lot of information here, but I think that was a good intro into your work, Dr. Sean.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You really optimize your appearance. I'm very tan, for, a guy that lives in Minnesota. And I got very good tone, I'm 62 years old, and I only exercise about 15 minutes every 3 days on average. I hardly work out, but I do that on purpose because I could work out a lot more. But I want to appeal to the executives who just don't have time, to let them know you can look this fit at age 62 with minimal amount of exercise, 15 minutes every 3 days or 5 minutes every day, and however you want to break it up. And just stop eating bad food, and you'll look great. I've never took steroids. I mean, I'll take my shirt off to not to brag. I've never taken steroids. I've never taken a hormone. Never. I've exercised about 15 minutes once every 3 days for 15 years, and I'm 62 years old. So this is how humans should look normally. But it's kind of an exceptional thing at my age because people are living incorrectly, doing the wrong things. They don't know what they should be doing to live correctly. But I do want to hold myself out as an example to other people. That was fun. Glasses. Hold myself out to other people as an example how really it's within the reach of most people. You don't have to exercise a long time, but you do need to stop eating processed foods, and you do need to eat what I call meat and microbes, getting in microbial rich fermented foods.
Mm, fantastic. Dr. Sean, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom. Much appreciated, and we'll have to get you on to expand on these ideas a bit further.
Happy to come back again, Simon. Thank you very much. Thank you kindly for allowing me the opportunity to come and encourage your followers, and I'd be happy to return.
Amazing.